You might not believe me, but I didn't get to 20, 30, 40, 50K month commissions selling for big names like Graziozi and Tony Robbins by only getting better at sales. It could be contributing as to why you're stuck below $10,000 to $20,000 a month in commissions.
So what you need to realize is that there is an invisible ceiling that inevitably every single closer hits if they only practice skill sets and say they hit like between $10,000 to $20,000 a month. And the reason is that you're using borrowed confidence and borrowed word tracks to close those deals. So you're walking the path that somebody else walked for certain to say $10,000, $15,000 a month. But a lot of times breaking out of that is a lot more than just skill sets. And when we use borrowed confidence and borrowed word tracks, even if it's effective over a period of time, making people say specific responses or give specific answers or feel specific ways eventually gets old. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still totally crush 10K or 15K or even 20K months by having that fundamental skill set. And you need to have that fundamental skill sets before you get into the next league, in the big leagues. But I want to emphasize that you can actually significantly increase your potential as a closer in a way that is way more genuine and a lot more high leverage than just word tracks and studying and practicing. That highest leverage execution item that you can do as a closer, again, given that you're doing all the fundamentals, is called aura. So I want you to think of aura like this. There's 3 levels to it, and every level that you go up, you're increasing the minimum threshold of your performative levels. What that means is as you go up in these levels, your minimum achievement abilities are higher than the previous stage. I'll give you an example. Level 1. If you look here, it's fabricated aura. It's external. You can think of this as Kaioken when Goku goes Kaioken mode, which 10x's his baseline performance. 10x is his strength, 10x is his speed and durability, etc. Now, the problem with fabricated aura is that yes, you become stronger, and this could be I learned new word tracks, this could be I learned new sales processes, follow messages, different things that makes you stronger as a closer, but you're at a stage where all these things that you're doing is very thought oriented. Like you have to think really hard on it, you have to practice it, and then when you do it, it takes a lot of stamina. Because the theology behind sales is that you're an athlete, you're a mental athlete at heart. Your ability and stamina is a key determining factor of how well you can perform and how long you can do it for. So level 1, the fabricated aura, is like Kaioken, where you're borrowing all these external stuff. Maybe you're learning a ton of new word tracks, a set of new techniques, anything that you can think of that you're studying right now in your first maybe 5 to 10K stage or 10 to even 15K stage. Then you progress to level 2. Level 2 is practice aura, right? Think about this as Super Saiyan. This is the first time that Goku went beyond his limits and turned into the legendary Super Saiyan. And your baseline is now no longer you have to train really hard and work really hard like the Kaioken previously. And after a day of being in your Kaioken mode, you get really tired, just like how Goku gets really tired after going Kaioken mode. The practice aura Super Saiyan, you can turn into that, you can turn the on switch by will, and you have longer stamina as a mental athlete in sales, and your skill levels are more practice, your skill sets are more practiced and honed, so it's more natural when you do it. Now, when you get into practice aura level 2, say you're around like 12, 15, or even 20 plus K in commissions, you have a flow. You have your style and your structure locked in, and you don't have to try as hard as you were in level 1 to present yourself as like a super awesome closer. You are a great closer by definition. And your baseline increase, which means you can take more calls, you have more stamina to handle more objections, and you can stay in the pocket longer. This is a very high level of performance already. Now, when we talk about having aura and all the best players in the game, think of them on level 3. It's an internalized identity aura. Think about this as ultra instinct from Goku, right? Where he dodges everything without even thinking. It's natural to him. It's reflex. Like people are like, oh, I need to think about it. What's behind that, right? And you start handling that. Yeah, it's too expensive. Cool. Can we talk about money? And then you can have the navigation to handle any situation that is thrown at you on a call because you're such an agile athlete in the sport of sales, and you've internalized all of the knowledge that you've learned about sales and all of the practice that you've learned about sales or practice in sales. You have now mastered it. It's a level of mastery. And Dean Graziozi, like the first lesson he's ever given to me, he told me to read the book Mastery by Robert Greene, because it's a book that essentially documents all these historical figures that's been massively successful and how they've taken their craft to extremes. And when they take their craft to extremes, especially in sales, guys, this is where you see people's like, hey, 50K a month closer, 40K a month closer, 100K a month closer, right? Granted, yes, the vehicle matters of what they're on and how well it times with, you know, their mental capacity versus the quality of the vehicle and all that good stuff to hit 50, 100K months. That being said, it's still an animal amount of stamina and a massive amount of skill set to be able to do that. Now, you can only hit that when you've internalized your identity aura, because that's where you stabilize your minimum baseline performance to the highest level that you can make it to be. And when you have this level 3 and you jump on a call, or even if you show up in team meetings or in your day-to-day life, you have a specific presence about you. And that's the end game. You want to create that presence about you. And if you think about any big names that is of the new generation closer or the previous generation, you know, godfathers and founders like Taylor Welch, like Cole Gordon, everybody, Jeremy Minor, right? Even my boss, Tony Robbins, like they all have their own aura for a reason. It's because they've practiced mastery for so long. It has internalized and has branded itself into the market, and it has branded itself into the prospects, into the different scenarios that they take their aura into. It's not about the external. It's not all coming from the internal. And that's something that nobody can take away from you. Lesson being, when you have level 3 internalized identity aura, the most powerful piece about this is that you're stabilized. And if you veer off that stabilization, that high performance baseline that you already have, you come back like that. This is why top performers, they can get out of ruts, or if they barely get into one, right? They get out of ruts like that, so it doesn't even look like they get into one. Now, I want to do a little personal story on how I practiced getting my aura to what it is today, because I'm hoping to give you guys a little bit of entertainment to see some of these funny pictures, but at the same time show you the iteration that I had to go through for myself to fundamentally change my identity to perform at the higher levels that I do today. So stage 1, I'll start here, like my aura journey is before entrepreneurship. That's just no aura. Like, bro is chopped. Like, I don't even know what I was looking at here, probably ordering some Postmates or some shit, and I was just overweight, right? And this stage has no aura because at this point I have not practiced anything. I have not applied myself to higher intensities of training. Like, I had to push my mind and my skill sets to a boundary and break through to actually get aura, right? But I didn't do that. So at that point, it was just, essentially I was pretty chopped, like, long story short. Stage 2, then we evolve into during the entrepreneurship. Like, this is more of my Kaioken phase. This is when I first saw my bucket of gold. I saw my first bucket of gold, having an understanding of like, okay, cool, I can make 10, 20, 30, 40,000 being an agency founder. I had an e-commerce agency, and you can see me here. This is Gucci, right? And this is just like a stack of cash, and it was like looking like a complete goon here. But this right here was me almost fabricating my presence by the external things, just as you can tell, like the money, the luxury brand. And yes, I had some more practice skill sets, running ads, creating offers, and making sales, but it wasn't internalized to a point where I saw a bigger vision. I was like, okay, how do I multiply this? I didn't even have that in my consciousness, which naturally led to me actually losing that business, my first business, in my early 20s. So that goes into stage 3. Stage 3 is actually the fall of entrepreneurship. That's really where the Super Saiyan, like the next level of aura came about for me. Like, as you guys can see here, chapter 7, filing, confirmation, next steps. Like, this is proof, like 2023, right? Like, I had an actual bankruptcy. Like, this is no joke. Like, all the things, like multiple 6 figures, like even getting up to 7 figures in the business in its entirety. Like, it just all went to shit. And that was a huge hit. That was a huge hit to somebody who is fabricating aura and had a bunch of money coming in. When I couldn't sustain that, it was a huge hit to the ego, and I had to reflect, and that was uncomfortable, right? And in that time, I picked up high ticket sales. on a much deeper level, and I was able to collect like tens of thousands and even upwards of like 100,000 like in a month and a half for my agency. But I couldn't keep it alive, as you can obviously see. I filed for bankruptcy because I couldn't fulfill at that point. My sales actually got better than my fulfillment, which is good for sales, but it wasn't good for as a business owner. And that made me realize, wow, okay, all the things I was equipping myself, like the different skill sets, gadgets, tools, like it helped me grow as a person and as an entrepreneur, but it wasn't really the silver bullet to take me to the highest version of myself that I could be. And that's when I realized, as opposed to, right, when I had the fall of entrepreneurship, that's when I realized the obsession that I really wanted to have is becoming the best version of myself, which is the cheesiest thing that you might, hear online. But I wanted something that couldn't be taken away. It wasn't if this ad didn't work, I couldn't come up with another one, or if I didn't close this deal, I couldn't close another one. I wanted something more that has more longevity. And that took us to stage 4, which is the rebuilding phase. Right, so for this one, I just called it Super Saiyan 2, right? Just like a little bit level up from the rebuilding phase, because what I had to recover for myself was coming out of bankruptcy, not having a job, not having any money left, and I had to rebuild. And luckily, I landed a role because of my acumen in sales at that point already with Dean Graziozi and Tony Robbins, offer. And in this rebuilding phase, I had my ego kicked in again, because I came in like I was hot shit, right? Because I knew I was an agency owner, other people were closers. I felt like I was better than people, and especially my sales skills, because I had to do B2B sales, and it was like hard hitting, as opposed to like regular B2C sales where it was more lower stakes, quote unquote lower stakes, but it's just a different type of sale, right? I didn't know it back then. I just didn't know. So the rebuild phase is where I had to really reflect and hone in on my sales skills, where at one point I was number 5 on the leaderboard. And I was literally number 5. If you look at the date here, guys, it's like number 5 from January to end of September. We had 1 quarter left in 2024, 1 quarter left. And in that last quarter, I went from the last person on team to the 5th, right? These other reps, they weren't even there already. So if you look at the dates here, January 1st, 2024, December 31st, 2024, I went to being essentially the first from the last on the team. Now, this rebuild phase established me as the number 1 closer on the team. But that being said, I was not done, because I knew at the end of the day, it was exactly at that point of minimal achievement that I was like, okay, cool, I'm good, I'm gonna coast. Instead of doing that, I doubled down. So I learned from my mistakes and I doubled down. And my aura is now developing in a trend of like obsessive self-mastery and obsessive development of my sales skills, and in the meantime learning the business skills of, say, content creation, more about funnels, more about ads, more about the whole slew of things that you can think of online in the online space. And being in Dean's household, like, I see some of the highest level performers in marketing and sales, as well as just anything you can think of in the online info space, and I just shut the fuck up, right? And I asked Dean one time, I was like, hey man, like, I want to really build myself up, I want to grow. Like, how do I know if I have the right people around me or learning from the right things? He basically said, just shut the fuck up and see who lifts you up and see who brings you down. And when I did that, that's when I doubled down on my aura of obsessive learning and actually building an identity of myself that I'm proud of, because it's built on top of integrity, not luxury brands that don't really matter to me anymore. An identity that's built on top of integrity as opposed to vanity that I no longer align with, that does not add internally to myself. Then we go into stage 5. This is the elevation phase, right? Up until now. So this is like where the ultra instincts comes in, where it's honing in. I've had probably over 10,000, maybe even 15,000 calls up to this point. And I've sold one-to-many, which is like a trademark for Dean and Tony. And it's a lot of fun. As a side note, it's a lot of fun. And you learn this skill and you never get tired of it, because it opens up your horizons and what you can do in the info space. That being said, this is my elevation phase. This is when I double down on my practices. And this is in 2025, right? That's when I hit my first like 50K and 30 some odd K, 40K months, and I became a speaker. Like, I became an actual coach speaker for Dean and Tony, for students who fly in all over the world to teach them about the sales process or teach them about the process of going from free content to having paid clients. The fulfillment of actually doing all these giving aspects aside, I just want to paint a picture. It's not to impress any of you guys, because I'm sure all of you guys who are watching this, you've gone through different iterations of how you've grown in your life as a business owner, as a closer. And really, I'm making these videos for closers. So yes, as a closer, as a salesperson, that you've had to work on your physique, work on your mental health, work on your mental strength in various different areas. But it's just to get the point across. The aura was developed not by completely neglecting the skills that I talked about, like in the beginning. It's like, it's not just about skills. Yes, the skills are important, but while you're doing that, putting yourself in retrospective and reflective scenarios, or with help, right? I had Dean Graziozi's help. Dean's a great help. And I also had other mindset coaches, top performers in the space to help me as well. But it's to put yourself in front of a mirror and evaluate what belief systems that you have been holding on, and shedding belief systems as quickly as possible to embrace new ones that are more expansive, to develop into the next version of yourself that you want to be. So you're like a charmeleon, unless you call it a carmeleon. I think it's a charmeleon, right? Like a little bearded dragon, right? Something that sheds skin. And it's not comfortable when you shed skin in this scenario, because you're parting ways with what you're used to who you're really trying to be. Which, as you guys are watching this, right, all of you guys closers, or even setters becoming closers, that's what you're doing for the prospects in front of you. Like, they have a belief system and you're shifting it, but you're doing it for yourself. And hence, hand to God, it's always harder for yourself than other people. Typically for people, it's harder to make that shift for themselves. That being said, at the same time, the hard things, right? As Alex Hormozy says, and Tony says this too, it's like, your biggest resistance is probably where you need to go for the best growth that you can have. Hence, what I'm going to do now is jot down on a whiteboard why it's actually easier to close when you are developing this aura on top of your skill sets. And on top of that, step by step of how you can also get aura yourself in this process. So let's go to the whiteboard.
Here is also why having aura is going to help you close deals a lot easier than if you're just faking it, right? Or if you're faking confidence, or if you're trying to borrow confidence from having done something, or conditional things like, I've done 20,000 sales calls, so therefore I'm confident. Aura is so internal and is so deeply rooted in who you are. I'm going to explain why it's easier to close with aura by actually explaining where aura shows up at and different things that gets demonstrated from people who have aura. If you have aura, and why it's easier to close deals, if you have aura, you have frame, you have conviction, which is a level above certainty. You have clarity. When you have aura, you explain things, you're direct, and you're able to get the point across. Now, different ways, right? If you look at these things, these are different ways that some closers teach about closing. It's like, well, here's how to have frame, here's how to have conviction, here's how to have clarity. Well, on top of that, right, I'm gonna use terms that all of you guys are more familiar with. On top of that, there's tonality, there's cadence, right? Those are literal parts of what comes from having firm conviction and clarity. So on top of tonality and cadence, you also have just word tracks, right? Word tracks. Now, word tracks, what they really are, they are actually features. I want you guys to think about word tracks as features. A word track from a closer that you guys are learning from online is a feature of who they've become. And this is why when they teach you word tracks, it works because their aura has been essentially branded on those word tracks. So all these little pieces added together are components of somebody having aura. If you look at shows like Suits, right? Like Harvey Specter, Mike Ross, they all have their own aura. They're the best lawyer closers that closes cases nonstop, but they have their own style of closing. When they say different things, it comes out differently for each one of them, but they all have their own frame, their own conviction, their own clarity. their own prerogative of where they're coming from. And their tonality and cadence, their word tracks are different, but they all work. Why? Because they have aura of their own. They have their own presence, right? And here's a key about aura. It's supposed to make other people feel good. And I'll explain why that is the case for a second. But this is how you can show up in your life. 4 grids, right? Positive, negative, emotional, logical. If you're a closer, you land somewhere in this grid. If you're like my boss, Dean Graziozi or Tony Robbins, for their ideal audience, a lot of times they'll land on the emotional, right? Positive note, right? So let's just say Dean and Tony, right? And there's different ways that you land on this grid. And you have to find out what that is. Because essentially where you land on this grid gives you clues on how you develop frame, conviction, clarity, tonality, cadence in your own word tracks. Because when you develop those, no one can take it away from you, nobody, because it becomes yours, internalized. If you're anywhere on this grid, which you have to be, right? You have to figure out where and how extreme. And if you're watching like a lot of these Instagram reels or YouTube videos of these different closers of how they're closing, and you're like, wow, I resonate with this closer. I resonate with that closer. That's probably because deep down, you have an inkling of how A, you like to be sold, and number 2, like who you resonate with the most. Like, I hate to break it to you guys, everybody's word tracks will work on somebody. But having somebody tell you or teach you how to actually narrow it down to what you can say to be most effective and what ideal audience that you're the best fit for is the tough part. And that's the self-discovery of finding your own aura. This is a part of it. I'll make other videos to go deeper into that, but you fall somewhere here on a different grid. And I'll give you a couple more examples, right? Like if you're more logical and negative on the other end of the spectrum, right? Like there could be other sales coaches that actually uses a strong like COI, cost of inaction, and uses like opportunity cost, right? To actually get somebody over the line. It's like, hey, if you don't do this, you're gonna lose out millions of ROI. Or if you don't do this, what's the implication on your family, your wife, right? It's very crudely put, but you get my point, right? For example, like one of the sales managers at Mastermind, which is one of Dean and Tony's companies selling online coaching, he took Bill Walsh's coaching, the objection box, and he took back like objection handling techniques and their style, which is really like hard hitting, right? It's very challenging type of style. So it's a lot of strong like cost of inaction and a lot of times very logical. So maybe we can put Mr. Bill Walsh here, right? Mr. Bill Walsh. Like there's a bunch of other guys, right? There's the Jeremy Minor, and maybe Jeremy is not positive or negative, not emotional or logical, like super balanced, and he leans more in the middle, but a little bit more positive. Let's say Jeremy's like right here, Jer, Minor, right? Or you could do like who's another good closer, right? Like another good closer, let's say some of the younger generation, right? Some of our generations like closer coaches online, they're a lot more logical and they're a little bit leaning towards like the negative, like the hard hitting side, like challenging really hard. Let's just say we're somewhere around here, right? Some of the new gen coaches, right? But this is very rough labels. I can give more examples in a different video, but you have to find out where you land on here and where you're sitting most comfortable. And that takes a process. It's a process of discovery. And there's a method to it. Again, I'll make another video on it. But this one specifically is gonna be focused on aura. And I say that it's supposed to make other people feel good because it's one of the most key components. Like when I say make other people feel good, it's not like you have to be like my bosses, like Dean Graziozi or Tony Robbins. Like they jump off of a webinar with 100,000 people and they all buy, right? It's like, oh my gosh, they're so great. It's not like that. You could be challenging like Bill or like somebody else. You could be challenging and you could have a lot of strong negative like reinforcement and still make other people feel good. Because for example, like I've seen some Bill's like work, super awesome. Like he challenges people, or if you're a hard-hitting objection closer, hard-hitting objection handling closer, like some people on my team, they still make other people feel good after they get them through on the other side, like get the close or get them on the other line of a belief system, and they feel good. The prospects feel good being with them because they feel like they have leadership. Feeling good doesn't always have to come from flowers and sunshine. Feeling good can come from hardship and challenge. So your aura if I go back to the point of like the suits, right? The show Suits, Harvey Specter and Mike Ross, Mike will make somebody feel really good and still close the deal. Harvey is gonna shit on you. Harvey is gonna run right through your chest with whatever is necessary to close a deal. Their aura makes other people feel good because they have established their authority, their frame, their conviction, their clarity in the process of the sale, in the process of their work with their specialized tonality, cadence, and their word tracks. And that's why aura works so much better when it comes to closing rather than borrow confidence. Because if you're borrowing somebody else's frame, conviction, features of word tracks or tonality, that is not going to be your end goal. Like it might get you to 10, 20K a month. It might, right? It probably will, honestly, because some of our word tracks are so good. Some of our frameworks are so strong. But to really transcend as a closer and as an individual, if you're a closer, like probably not gonna be doing sales forever. When you have your own offer, as you develop yourself, you're gonna have to develop your own style, right? And I'm not saying you're gonna teach sales coaching. You could be teaching something else, or you could be selling another business service, but you would have to develop your own aura around your service, around your niche, around your market to be the most effective. And that's why aura closes 10 out of 10 times better than word tracks or any other borrowed confidence. The grid that I just showed you guys with the positive, negative, the emotions one, that's one frame to look at how to get aura. I'm gonna show you guys how to step-by-step to develop this aura initially. So first of all, I wanna give you guys an example. From what I told you guys about how I got aura and everything, I wanna break down this chart for you guys. It's the experience, belief, actions, habit, and then new experience, new belief, new actions, and new habits chart. What ends up happening as you're going through life, and especially if you're in sales, you're gonna eat shit. What I mean by that is that you're gonna get kicked, right? In the gut or in the knee or somewhere along the lines. You're gonna have an experience, not just in sales, but as you're doing sales, right? Like me, like my business failed, or I lost my girlfriend, or I had a breakup, right? Whatever it is. You're gonna have your own subset of life things happen in this realm as you're developing yourself as the top closer. Now, I have the steps here, but hang on. What ends up happening is you have to break the habits of where you're stuck. If you're stuck at 5K a month and you have a similar experience with sales, with romantic relationships, with business entrepreneurship, your belief system of how easy or hard or how you should do stuff will direct your actions to create a habit which instills in the identity. And your identity and aura is tied together. If your habits keep you at 5K, 10K a month instead of 20, 30, 40, 50K a month, then that means your identity is stuck there and your aura is not at the level where it can go to 50K a month when you change. Just like how I changed. I went to a new environment. I went to a different country. I built new belief systems on my romantic life, on my physical shape, and on my mental capacity to handle more stress or handle more workload or handle what more workload looks like. And then I increased my say-do ratio, which is my 2.0 actions to build new habits. That's why I took more calls. That's why I worked out whenever I needed to. That's why I made sure I rest my body. And that's how I build essentially a whole new subset of identity, because all these things carry over to a new identity. And that, my friends, is gonna become eventually your aura. You can't do these three things without changing a whole subset of who this first person is to build a new version of yourself, which is gonna land up on this side. And that's key, guys, because like if you can't do it, then you have to make shifts. You simply have to make shifts so that it makes sense for you to actually deserve the 50K a month. And deserve is a tough word to have, because to deserve something, you have to be someone. And I'm not saying that from no proof. I am saying that from me doing it myself. And also it's one of the biggest lessons I think Graziozi taught me is ask the question of what do you want? Okay. What are your non-negotiables? And then a third column is what is it that you need to do, right? To become like, who do you have to become to deserve what you want and be disassociated with those non-negotiables. Like you never have to face one of those things that you said, I never want to have this as that person. Like for him, it was becoming ultra successful, retiring his family. For me, right, it's in a similar route of having self-mastery of my skill sets and my mindset. So that deservedness becomes your aura. That becomes your identity as you go through this new subset of actions and belief system alteration. And the steps to get there, number one is to change your environment. Number 2 is your physical and mental standards, your physiology, how you take care of yourself, and how you actually ground yourself mentally as you go through your challenges. And third and finally is your say-do ratios. When you set the goals that you say you're going to do, how are you reflecting in your action taking? Alex Hormozi also said this, right? Like, the intelligence of a person is measured by how quickly they decide something and it happening. How fast do you turn that thought into the reality is the intelligence. Or how many times you have to go through something to learn the pattern and then get out of the pattern. That's what this is, the say-do ratio. If you say something, okay, how fast am I gonna do it? How many times am I have to do it to learn it? That's this part, guys. The whole point of this second subset is how quickly your say-do ratio gets you to have the new experiences, to build new beliefs, take new actions, build new habits, to have the aura. And when you have those things, you're really gonna be a G. I want you to understand aura even better conceptually and practically how you can get it. And the reason that it's easier to close deals with aura than to just fake it or to do the Kaioken method. It's like, I follow up with 500,000 million people today, which of course that'll succeed. Anybody who could do that will succeed. But it's like, I've always been more of a quality over quantity guy. You need both, but it's like, if you get up the quality first and then you do quantities of quality, you're gonna win. And I want you to win. So think of it this way. The reason that it's easier to have aura and close deals more than just faking it is the way that aura shapes you as a person. So here's how you are shaped as a person. Anyone. This is us as humans. We have experiences, beliefs, and actions that builds habits. I was an immigrant. So say my experience was it's tough being an immigrant trying to break into the corporate world or break into entrepreneurship, right? Which is totally not true. Say that was my experience, right? Because I didn't speak English until I was like 10, 11 years old. And I was like, fuck, how am I gonna do this? I don't even know how I'm gonna survive. I mean, you guys saw how chopped I was in college, right? It's like I kind of fussed my way up here or fussed my way around to try to build myself up, right? But it's like the experience that sets a belief. My experience is like, oh, I didn't speak English that well. I got decent grades because I had a tough enough Asian mom. But my belief was like, cool, that's what I'd just be. I'll just have to get a good job. That's as much as I can go. So then my actions was like, okay, fuck. Let me just do the absolute best I can. And the absolute best I can is just get a good job, right? So my action was, I just got straight A's. I was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna maintain my grades to be the best possible because then I'm gonna get a fantastic job. So my habit didn't just stay at getting good grades. It was like, okay, I'm gonna study really hard and I'm gonna watch a ton of like shows or doom scroll as I was in like high school, right? And my habit became like a simulation of a good 9 to 5 because I would just study, eat, hang out a little bit, maybe study more. So it's just like a really good 9 to 5 guy, 9 to 5 to be, right? Well, now there's a reality check because then when I got into college, my experience was I actually couldn't really get a corporate job. I couldn't. I had great grades, but I switched majors, right? I gave up on being a doctor because I really didn't like chemistry. And then I realized, okay, I want to do XYZ. I want to do business. I want to do finance. I want to do supply chain. I want to do XYZ, XYZ. So my experience changed drastically the second I landed in college and nothing could have prepared me for it. So then my belief was like, okay, cool. I just got to switch things up, right? My belief is like, okay, this won't work. My action became like, okay, let me frantically look for internships just to see what I could land. And then my habit became just like looking for easy jobs or looking for jobs at least that would keep me safe. So I lowered my standards significantly because I thought I was fucked. Habit. My habit was not looking for jobs at this point. My habit became an identity that says, settle for survival. Settle for survival. That became my identity. And I'm not a sidekick, but if you have a settle for survival identity, you're not gonna do big shit. Like you're just not. You're probably not going to break through limiters as easily as if you were to not settle for survival, but instead reach for thrive, right? Thrive for more. So here's the thing. The habit, the physical manifestation was only an outward reflection of what was going on inside. So if you can retrace your actions on what you do on a day-to-day basis, even the fruit that you eat in the fridge, right? What kind of fruit choices do you eat? Do you eat the high sugar ones, or do you eat the antioxidant ones? Do you look at like the different things that you eat, right? Do you eat protein? Say you eat Chipotle, cool, but like, do you eat more organic meats that you actually cook yourself, right? There's differences. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it's because it's all relative to your own health, obviously. But it's like, even these little external actions, you can trace it back. Well, cool, I only eat these quick Chipotle meals because my family grew up eating fast food. So I'm gonna stick with it, right? Not that it's good or bad, it's just what I'm used to. And it's like simple, it gets it done. And I'm not making a big meal out of Chipotle, love Chipotle, but at the same time, these external habits, it was a reflection of the inward. Because then new experience comes. I'll give you one last example. New experience comes is then, say I don't land any jobs. I started selling life insurance. My belief is like, okay, cool, I can only do sales now. At this point, it's too late. So I started doing sales, and I'm like, my actions is doing more sales, more sales, more sales. My habit became the traveling sales guy. So that's setting the tone, right, for what I'm doing now. Remote closing or speaking gigs, right? That's expansions of what I've done, but it's a foreshadow. Because then my experience, being my own contractor, I was like, cool, let me just start a business. Because I tried entrepreneurship and it failed in college. I was like, let me try again at the end of college. It was when I was selling life insurance at that point. My experience when I started entrepreneurship, right, it's like me and my partner, like we build it up to have some revenue coming in. So the belief is like, cool, this shit could work. Actions, double down on the business. Habit, I'm now an entrepreneur because I'm doing business every single day. My identity has shifted. So now my identity has plus entrepreneur, right? This settle for survival, right? Let's say I didn't address it because I didn't realize it at the time. I was an entrepreneur that also settles for survival. That's not a good thing, because I'll tell you why. Because when I was in that relationship, in that business, right, with my partner, with my business partner, with like the employees, with everybody else, because of my character, the settle for less has made a mark in my identity. I wasn't as confident, I wasn't as courageous where I could be, but being the entrepreneur got me out of this settle for survival more and more, obviously, but there was always that inkling in there. And it wasn't until the end, the experience of like almost, oh wow, guys, we're running out of cash flow for the business, that my belief is like, okay, cool, it's ride or die time. My back is against the wall, I have to close. That I developed my closing skills by taking action on closing, right? Learning more, paying for mentorship. And my habit became, I'm a closing machine. I'm gonna learn VSLs. I'm gonna learn funnels. And my new identity became the entrepreneur that can figure anything out. Right? I became a powerful entrepreneur that can figure anything out, but then the business failed. So that was ego check, right? Ego. Business failed. Oh, looking at my ego, actions, pivot to job, habit is I'm looking for a new job or I'm working at a new job, and my ego has been checked. These blend of identity has shaped who I was before. Some of these identity now carry over to the new experiences. So I shift completely from entrepreneurship to job, right? I meet Dean Graziozi, and then I meet a bunch of new mentors and meet a bunch of new A players. I take actions differently, and I build new habits, right? Those are habits that got me, say, to 20K, 30K, 40K, 50K month in commissions. Those are habits, the identity, right? AKA the aura pieces that got me there. Because I had to behave differently. I had to act differently. And the story goes to tell, the person that was living in this reality and the person that was living in this reality were two different people, not only by skill sets, but by being essentially going through new experiences, having friction, coming out of the friction stronger. So that resonates with the piece earlier. I said you have to shed your skin like a Charmeleon, right? Like a bearded dragon. Somebody's gonna comment and make fun of me on that. I don't know how to say it, but it's the one that sheds off skin like a lizard, right? But that version over here, the one with the identity, which is the identity level aura, right? He doesn't have to be like a fucking Michael Jackson rock star, but he has an aura and a level of integrity because he's gone through all these identity shifts and shedding, that when he gets to this side of the table, what he's able to do is he stands in front of your objections in a different way. That I need to think about it, talk to my spouse, the money objections, the uncertainty, that I need to pray about it, the I don't make decisions on the spot. Like all those objections, yes, part of this transition is gonna be the reps, the skills, and it's gonna be word tracks. But understand this, like all these things, they end up blending into this identity of aura as you go through these new experiences, whether it's sales call experiences or entrepreneurship experiences that you couldn't handle. But through those reps, you come up with techniques and different ways of identity closing yourself that cross applies to your prospects in this whole process, because your life is the story. And the reason that aura is more effective genuinely is because when you go through these big changes for yourself, it's engraved. You don't forget engraved experiences. You can forget words. You don't forget engraved experiences and the emotions that are attached to it and the neural pathways that are attached to it, so that when you handle an objection with word tracks that you don't remember, you can still say it with different words and have it hit the same way, if not even better. That's why people who are hyper successful in closing, they can say the same shit in like 100 different ways. It's not that they've just memorized the whole Bible of closing lines. It's that they are the Bible of closing lines. And that's why people pay to learn from them, because it's important to not only learn what they say, but the emotional mastery of yourself so that you can say it in your own unique way, your own unique aura. Because let's get another example going here. What aura really is, right? And what we like to compare to in the open marketplace. Think about things like frame, right? Having frame on a call. Everybody knows what that is. Having conviction, having clarity on a call, right? These are all important aspects of a great closer. We can add in tonality, cadence, word tracks. These, I want you to think of one word. Components. In fact, take out the word track one. What a word track is features. Cadence, tonality, frame, conviction, clarity. You can say certainty, right? But conviction is a level above certainty. You can say all these things and a few more. These are components of somebody's aura. If you've seen the show Suits, right? We got Harvey Specter, Mike Ross. We got Louis Litt. 3 different closers, top of the line closers, by the way. Harvey Specter has his own frame, conviction, clarity, cadence, tonality, right? He's the best closer in New York. Mike Ross, top level closer as well, taught by Harvey. Eventually become just as good, if not even better than Harvey, his teacher. Also has his own frame, conviction, clarity, tonality, and cadence. Same way with Louis Litt. Louis Litt gets made fun of in the show, but he has his own version of his aura. And these are components of his aura. The differentiator, say Harvey, is I'm gonna get the deal done at all costs with any means necessary. That's his aura. He's the guy that just closes. Mike has a photographic memory. He's the guy that's like, okay, my frame and conviction is standing up for the little guy. My photographic memory allows me to close deals in ways that are different than Harvey, but just as powerful. Louis Litt, his knowledge on financial law allows him to close deals at the same high level as the other two, just in a different way because his skill set, his knowledge set that he has mastered is different. Word tracks are features. I specifically isolated that because this is such a hot topic if we're learning from Instagram Reels. And it's like so interesting because when you do use some of those lines, it actually works on your calls. A lot of times it doesn't, sometimes it does. They are features of the people with aura that produce them. Because the guys with aura, they can produce endless features about what they do or how they do it. And that's what comes up with the word tracks. And you have to understand, on that journey that I showed you on the other side of the backboard, right, with the experience, belief, action, and habit, which leads to your new identity, over a course of period of time, you can locate yourself on this chart as what kind of closer you are. You got positive, logical, emotional, negative. So positive, negative, emotional, logical. This will be another video, but to give you an example, like your aura and your identity, if you're positive and emotional, super hyper positive emotional. Maybe say you're like my bosses, right? Like Tony Robbins, right? TR, and then DG, Dean Graziozi. Like maybe you guys are like these peeps. Or it can be logical and negative, right? Somebody who's a little bit more fully logical, but not really positive or negative, just like a full logic closer, or somebody who's like a full emotional closer. Like understanding this allows you to strengthen yourself as a closer. It allows you to do a few things. Strength versus strength versus weakness. That's the first one. You know where your strengths are, you know where your weaknesses are. Or number two is like pick offers. Like you know where you're shooting for. Like you're probably not gonna sell fucking hedge fund managers if you're like this red dot. Maybe closer if you're that red dot, right? Or even this one, right? Hey, Mr. Hedge Fund Manager guy, if you don't do this investment, it's totally fine. I get that you have to think about it, but like on the other side of that, based on the things that we calculated, without a shadow of doubt, the money behind this thinking is approximately 400K. And I know you run a tight ship. So what does that person really do compared to this 400K, right? Our 50K investment to actually have this upside and then have XYZ other benefits that we talked about, right? So like, that's a negative, for example, negative logical like handle that I need to think about it. But again, understanding this allows you to highlight your strength or weakness and pick what arena you want to fight in. Like this is your aura maximized. And if you're somebody who can go in all directions, right? Or if you want to be as well-rounded as possible, then you do that. But it's to understand where your starting point is. Like if you have 250K, 500K, a million cash collected, where are you on this chart? Like I didn't know until like, I think after 3 or 4 million collected, right? Until I got to my like 6 or 7 million collected. Now, like there's that gap in the middle where it's like, fuck, what? It's like, I know I'm good at closing, but why do I just like feel like I'm missing something? Well, I was missing me, right? So it's the same way I want you guys to start navigating how you can check your daily experiences and what phase you are right now in your life, what's slowing you down, what's speeding you up, what's hooking you, what's taking you away from just developing the best version of this for yourself, and how are you fixated, how much you're fixated on things like this, as opposed to actually developing your set of aura by going through the experiences at a higher capacity, higher rate. So last but not least, to tie the knot, because I think I gave you guys a lot to think about, just to tie the knot of how you can really practice this. Forewarning, it's not gonna be comfortable because you are essentially breaking up with yourself or a version of yourself at very specific points of all this journey. Like you're doing a breakup. A breakup is not comfortable by any measure. Not with yourself, not with a romantic partner, not with a family member, not with a friend, okay? Or they probably weren't really that close in your heart. How you actually find your aura, I'm gonna start with 3 simple steps, because when you work on these 3 steps, it's tangible things that you can track. The first one, to get yourself out of similar experiences, the number one easiest way, and you probably have heard this, is environment. This is numero uno. My mentor explicitly told me, and as I was showing you guys my aura journey, if you guys want to make fun of me, it's the part where I went from the bankruptcy phase to the rebuild phase. My mentor told me that once I hit 10 to 15K a month in commissions, I'm just gonna hit a bottleneck, or maybe even 15 to 20K. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I have no idea what that even means, right, at the time, because I just embarked on this journey. And when I started hitting 15, 20K months, after my bounce back period, when I went from the last person on my team to the first in 3 months out of the year, when I hit that 15, 20K a month consistently, I was like, wow, yeah, I see what he's talking about. It feels like I'm just stuck here. He said, once you hit that bottleneck, number one thing to do, when I say environment, travel. And that's what I did. I went to like 4 or 5 different countries over the span of like 4 or 5 months in 2025, so last year, to do that. And that's where you saw the elevation phase, where I hit my higher commission months, because I was moving away from what I was familiar with. Environment. I also let go of my last relationship because it wasn't growing in the direction that I was going with everything I was doing here. It was more of a settle situation. Number 2, you change your environment, but as you're changing the environment, it's also to make sure that you're staying vigilant. And one of the easiest ways to do that as a closer, and some people in the industry preaches this very much, very heavily. I'm not saying you have to do this. It's just how I did it that helped me a ton. Is fitness. Reason I say fitness is because I was always fit in my life. However, as I was going through these iterations and changes, I realized my inconsistency level increased. Because I was trying to make more money. I was trying to learn more work tracks. I was trying to do this. I was trying to learn that tactic. But I wasn't living life. I was trying to hoard as much skill sets as possible just so that because I believed that was the way to go initially. So fitness came into the picture when I was traveling. I was like, okay, cool. I need something to ground me as I'm doing all this. I used to do judo, Muay Thai, weightlift, power lift, all that. So I decided to commit myself just to simple like bodybuilding, athletic bodybuilding, and athletic training. And I got in the best shape of my life last summer. On top of that, I got my best paychecks and best commission months because it was the grounding period that I got for myself to hone my athleticism in the physical world. I told you, mental athletes, what we are. Mental athlete. For me, it was being a physical one too. Last but not least, third one and most important one is say-do ratio. If you know this, congratulations, okay? Now, are you doing it? It's a lot easier said than done. This is knowing the secrets to the castle, but the practicing is the hard way. I'm gonna give you a real-time example. The most powerful version of this, and Dean told me this, Dean Graziozi, is like, whenever you say something, you have to do it because if you don't, you're saying fuck you to yourself. And when you lose respect for yourself, you show up on calls, the prospects will feel it subconsciously. You're not gonna close the deal, bro. Because you said no to yourself before your prospects ever had an opportunity to. Prospects look for people with strong identities that can lead. So the first person we have to lead is ourselves. If I say that I'm going to do my 8-hour shift, 10-hour sales calls, make 3 sales today, and then hit the gym, and then make content for 4 hours, I'm gonna do it. In fact, when I hit my 30, 40, 50K months in Europe, as I was on the move, I did just that, right? I did my hours of sales, I hit the gym, I had my fitness pillar, and then I did my say-do ratio. I was like, hey, I'm gonna make content today. Because that was the easiest thing to give up. It was the path of least resistance. I could cut out 4 hours of my day just to fuck around and do nothing. But I couldn't because I promised myself I would. I didn't hire an editor. I didn't have any help. I only recently got like an editor, video director. But back then, I had to say yes to myself on a daily basis. And when I finished that video that day, even though it would take me 4 fucking hours because I was so chopped at editing, even though it would take me a ton of time, after I finished doing it, then when I went into my next day, I felt so much more powerful because I look at my last day, I'm like, damn, I did everything I said I was gonna do. So let that be a lesson in the sense, the conclusion of the lesson, like 1, 2, 3, of the simplest ways, right? There are many other ways that you can develop aura, but these are the simplest ways that have helped me to do it. And it costs you nothing to do this, right? The environment, you don't have to travel. The environment could be moving to a different city. That's a different environment, right? Because you are paying rent anyways, right? If you're living in your parents' place, for me personally, I had to leave. I have a strong cultured family that has a different belief system. So I had to move out of that environment to develop my own identity and aura. You can do the same. If you're paying rent already, especially, right? You see these people get high rises. Yeah, it looks cool, right? But at the same time, maybe there are other reasons why they're doing it, right? Not gonna over glorify it, but if you go to different environments and you practice your mental and physical fitness, right? And you keep a strong say-do ratio, which cross applies to both mental and physical fitness, it just makes you a stronger individual. And there's one last bonus one I'll give to you guys before we go today. And I wish I knew this earlier. This is the bonus one. Hidden number 4, ego management. Because this journey of like stripping yourself of what used to be and building what will become, this whole entire process, it can be a little ruthless to yourself sometimes, depending on how quickly you do it or how you take it. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes it does sting. And a lot of times, like this piece, ego, is what stands in the way most often because you felt like you became somebody. Whereas the people at the top that I know, that I'm learning from, right? It's not that they don't have it. They just manage it really well. They know where to keep it, the ego. They're never afraid to seek for help, and they're obsessively craving for it all the time. I have my own fair share. And I think if any of you guys are watching, which I think you guys are all high performers, if you're watching stuff like this, I think, care about studying. If you do the other 3 steps and keep your ego management in check, there's very few things that can stop you because it allows you to ask for more help while working on yourself and the speed to which you grow substantially faster. So in the future, if you guys take away anything from the video today, take away these 2, because I know we went over a lot. When you're studying your word tracks, your tonality, your cadence, don't forget to study yourself. And it's not to get in your head, but just make the first point this: study your word tracks, do your basics, do your fundamentals, but study who you're becoming, by the things that you're choosing on a day-to-day basis, down to the details of your food, your vitamins, how you sleep, and how you take care of yourself. And then if you take away anything, number 2 is generally don't be afraid of reaching out for help from those who are a few steps ahead of you. And even if you're crushing it, even if you're like a 50K a month closer, a 30K a month closer, it just never hurts to shake another person's hand who's doing this just as well, or if not better, or even if they're doing 20K a month, right? Just a little underneath you. You can probably pull something away from anyone. But the transformation itself, this extraneous journey, is why I bring up these 4 points of the environment, of the physical fitness, of the say-do ratio, and of the ego management. Because when you have these 4, it makes that process easier and you can go through it quicker. Iterations of change. And if you're between the ages of like anywhere between like 20 and like 35, you're doing big shit, this one right here is probably the hardest. And then also learning yourself and not letting achievements be the judgment of your worth. But yeah, take away what you guys can and go apply it. I want you guys to crush it. Stand firm the next few appointments, maybe get a few extra wins from this. I would love to know what style of closer you are, if you even know or have been able to identify. Just comment down below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next training. Peace.